Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody to our last meeting for the year. Inika is not able to meet with us today. She's doing graduations, and this was an unplanned meeting. So welcome everybody. We hope we will be getting to where we're actually be voting. So just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and this is being recorded. So let's go through the agenda. We want to see if there's anybody here for public comment. Then we're going to review some key information from previous SBAC meetings. We're going to discuss the scoring and the implications on Tier 1 allocations. Then we'll do a final vote and look at next steps. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill at this point. Is Jill here or?
I think you're muted, Jill.
I think there's a weird feedback as well. I need to see my notes. Jill?
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Jill.
Okay. Okay, testing?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, for some reason anyway, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I was hooked up to my monitor and that didn't work, but hi everybody. Definitely want to acknowledge and appreciate folks being here today for this extra meeting and for completing your homework. So definitely want to say thank you for being here and for that participation because your inputs are important. We just want to give some reminders about the meeting protocol. I would love for you to have your screen on if at all possible, making sure that you've renamed yourself so that we can see which group you're a part of. We want to also just remind folks that the chat feature should only be used by members of the SBAC committee so that we can track that. So please make sure that if you are here as a participant to view that meeting, the chat feature should only be used by SBAC voting members. And then because we will actually be today, we will only be the SBAC voting members should be the only ones doing that vote. The toolbar while in Zoom, that should help orient you there. Hopefully we are all experts on Zoom at this point at this point in time. All right, next slide, please, Vivian. Just want to run through a couple of reminders and reference. So this really should not take long, but just want to remind folks about all of our resources and what has been shared with you. On the next slide, you see the appendix of our key terms. We've been utilizing these terms throughout these SBAC meetings, and I'm sure you all have this list memorized at this point in time. Definitely want to... Oh, hello? Want to ground ourselves in the core values of resource allocation in terms of the conversations that we have been having in SBAC and some of the feedback that you have shared on your survey. It's really clear that folks have been internalizing these core values of equity, transparency, excellence, engagement, and particularly sustainability and stability. So want to acknowledge you all for doing that. On the next slide, slide 8, just a reminder that we are trying to we're recognizing that while we have some resources, we don't have the resources to fund all of the things. We can do anything, but we can't do everything. And we've really been doing the work in the context of these meetings to focus on those 5 LCAP goals and this orientation to organizational clarity and the things that we need to do as a system to focus on identified focal student populations, to build and strengthen our infrastructure, to ensure the implementation of the programs and activities that we have outlined, all to achieve our district's mission. And then the final component on our resources is that last Friday, Pauline sent out to this group the SBAC scoring resource guide, which is linked there on the deck. So with that, I think I am turning it over to Pauline.
Okay, thanks, Jill. So I'm going to take us through a quick review of what I've presented before, both in terms of our capacity and our thoughts regarding the May revise and other financial information I've shared with you. So I'm going to walk us through this pretty quickly. We're trying to get to our voting. So as a reminder, in the governor's May revise, we did get $88,000 from the COLA. There was an additional reduction in the arts and music block grant. Our contribution to STIRS and PERS, it may be impacted at this point. We do have $800,000 still being scored in the arts and music block grant in 23-24. And again, how do we determine capacity? This multi-year slide has all the most recent information in terms of our COLA, what we think it's going to be funded, and looking at the impact of revenue, the transportation revenue to 23-24 and 24-25. We looked at the STIRS report relief for both years. And looking at a capacity of $3.2 million ongoing, still gives us a comfortable ending fund balance, and we can actually absorb the 3.2% ongoing. But what's not in here, in 23-24, we do have negotiated salaries. As a reminder, in 24-25, we do not have negotiated salary increases. So that's something that we would need to be scoring going forward. So in terms of organizational clarity, one strategy to address is this you or me, Jill? Hold on.
You go for it, Pauline. You're on it.
Wait. I think this is your slide. It's Jill's slide.
It is. It's my slide, but you were on a roll. I'm like, you go, Pauline. Yeah, but I'm going to pick up where she left off. But yeah, in terms of organizational clarity, like one, and particularly in the organizational clarity component of infrastructure, one strategy to address the needs is for us to figure out how we're organizing existing people. And that was really one of the highlights that our superintendent has shared with us in the context of this conversation through SBAC, but also in her listening and learning report. How we're organized really sets us up for how we can do the work and plan for alignment across departments, but also particularly across grade levels, and thinking, we are a united school district and we need to be doing a lot more of that vertical alignment PK-12. In the context of the many initiatives that we have, we've set forth, I think, something around 270 actions, which can become, relatively challenging to feel like you're making progress on all of them, but how we can better situate ourselves to take on parts of that work. And as one thing that keeps coming up in this meeting, as well as our parent advisory meetings, how we're measuring toward that implementation and impact. We're really trying to get ourselves situated to do that for next year.
Thanks, Jill. So we're now going to take a look at the tiered budget strategies, revised recommendations. Some of these you have seen before, and some of them may be a little new. So we did
actually, Pauline, hold on a second, because I'm seeing one comment before we move from the budget overview. Dan has put a question, or at least a comment, explaining how much the 1% salary increase is for the budget. Do you see that?
Yeah, I didn't see it, but it was about $1 million. But with salary increases, that's more than likely going to be 1.06, so probably 1.1. And this is the impact on the unrestricted general fund. So remember, all funds have to pay their share of the increases, but there is like a $1.1 million impact for each 1%. And as a reminder, bearer does not pick up the increase. Bearer is a set amount. So this is just going to be the impact on the unrestricted general fund and other funds. Were there any other questions? Okay, so let's push us on to the new funding requests and proposals. And as I mentioned, we shared this with you before, but we've kind of put it all together here. And then we've added a few items as well. So pointer staffing, we shared with you the original cost for pointer staffing, $295. We removed the amount that was funded in AMIM and the learning block grant. So that $295 actually was a savings to the unrestricted general fund. Destination, is there a question or somebody saying something? I can't see. Okay, I'm going to move us on. Destination college advisor, it's now a $2,000 ask. Cameras on the bus, it's in tier 1, but it shifted positions in tier 1 based on our revised thinking. RISE program, this is now 50% of the original ask. So, and you will see that further on in the discussion. Step Up Academy, what we've done, it was previously called STEM Steps. It's renamed to appropriately reflect the program name and reduce confusion with Super Science Saturday STEM program. So we've added some clarity there. The SDC class was cost neutral. It's no longer included. The expense for the 0.4 FTE high school teacher ELD coordinating at Berkeley High School, it's covered in LCAP. Furniture and fixtures at the Berkeley High School Wellness Center, it's going to be, there is an alternative funding source identified for that. Personnel commission has been removed from tier 1. Request to be scored in the other request section. School campus 8 funded at prior levels. That was an ask, but it's removed because we're actually keeping all the funding the same for the school campus 8. Funding to support core literacy professional development, that was removed. We identified alternative funding in the alternative minimum, alternative minimum, that's a financial, the arts and music instructional block grant. So with that, do we have any questions on that? Or can I move us on to our thinking in tier 1? We have our running total and we've revised the order somewhat, which we discussed this in cabinet, and this is our thinking now. So this kind of gives you an idea of how we're prioritizing items in tier 1. So we know with compliance, we have to do that. That's up to the $1.346 million. We're not gonna, that's not something that we'd actually score or vote on. We have to do that. So I don't think, Jill, we're not gonna vote on those, right? Or are we just gonna assume we have to do them? So they're a yes, or should we vote on all items?
I feel like we should vote on all items, but I hear
Okay.
what you're saying. Yep.
Okay. Okay, and then our school campus aids, the order has been shifted somewhat. Lexia is it's still in tier 1 and our first priority. So up to our partnerships with the Super Science Saturday and Summer Maker Camp, that's still in tier 1 in the first $1.8 million. So So if for some reason we only got $2 million, we know that all these items above the 1.793, actually above $2 million, will be funded, and the others will have to reassess. Again, these are the other bucket, if you will, up to the 2.1 million, up to $3.1 million. So this is our priority within Tier 1, based on the superintendent's and staff's recommendation. Anything new that I have to add here? We do have the additional counselor for BTech at 149,416. That's added in Tier 1, and I think not sure we mentioned it on the other slides, but that's something that we've included here. And then our transportation on the buses, that's further down in our priorities, still in Tier 1, but towards the end of our Tier 1 ask. The RISE program is also in Tier 1, and that amount has been reduced by 50%. And then our administrative assistant for the Equity Achievement and Belonging program, that's also in Tier 1, but moved down in priority. And the 3.5 extensive support needs for SDC have determined that it can be deferred for another year, or it's already included in their budget. So this is the 3.462 million that we're going to be actually looking at in more detail, and we'll be actually scoring Tier 1 tonight after I've presented some other slides. So are there any questions before I move us forward?
Yeah, Pauline, VHS has a question. What is the measure used to determine above enrollment projections for campus aid?
I think is Sam here? Oh, Sam is here.
Sam's here.
So we had a formula where it was, do you remember the formula, Sam?
So
for campus aids?
it's a formula based on the enrollment. So we looked at the enrollment numbers. I believe we were looking at the ones in October. Is that right, Pauline?
Yeah, October, correct.
Compared to what they have been. During COVID, we had suspended the formula because of the need to make sure that our campuses had enough staff to meet all of the needs. But we were looking at it this year as to whether or not we wanted to go back to following the formula as we did pre-COVID. And we decided that we wanted to take time to figure out whether or not that formula is still valid. So currently the formula is like 0 to 200, you get a certain amount, 200 to 300, you get a certain amount, and 300 to 400, and so on. And it's based on the number of kids enrolled. So there's an amount of FTE you get for school campus aides or for the school service assistants. And right now, there are a few sites that are have more than others based on the fact that we haven't been following the formula since during COVID.
Okay, I see Vicky's hand, and then I see Mildred's hand.
I think I have 3 questions. The first one is about the SPED, the 3.5 ESN class. In 2 or 3 slides earlier, you said that it was cost neutral, but then just now you said you're putting it off a year. Can you clarify which that is?
No, it's cost neutral.
Okay,
I
and then
misspoke, it's cost neutral.
okay, and then can you go back a slide? Okay, and then previously, I think that the looking for the, or maybe it's not on the slide, but the makers class and the super science Saturdays were 2 separate items. The super science Saturdays, does that happen throughout the whole year or just in the summer?
I'll turn that over to Jill for
Yeah,
her
the
to
Super Science Saturdays happen during the school year in the spring is when we launched them this year. So I can only speak for this year because I I don't know how it's been in the past, but for this year, the Super Science Saturdays were this spring. And then the summer school, the summer maker camp is only in the summer.
Right, okay. And then, so then I also noticed in the survey, the African American framework items that were the RT Fisher were combined into one, where they're broken out into 3 separate ones here. So when we vote, will we be voting on these separately?
I think we'll be voting on all 3 as one, right?
Right. So
Yeah,
that's, so
that should
Vicky,
have been, yeah.
yeah, Vicky's like predicting our next slide, Pauline.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. That was definitely our next slide. We're going to share some themes that came up from questions and comments that people put on the survey. And that was one of the questions.
Okay.
So I think it's just important for folks to note. So we'll just answer it here since you asked. We did put it together because when we contract with RT Fisher, it's the whole of the contract. And so part of the work that they're providing is the professional development and support for operationalizing the African American Success Framework. And they are also doing the Step Up Academy work, which takes place during the school year and the summer session.
Okay, so Vicky, that's any more questions, Vicky, or you're that's
No,
it
I'm
for me?
okay for now. If you could stay on this slide for just another minute, though.
Pauline, there was a second part to Beatrice's question. Can
Oh.
SBAC get the enrollment information next time we meet in the fall?
Yes, you may. Yes,
Okay.
I'll be happy to share. Oh, is Beatrice? I mean, is it in the chat or?
Yes, it's in the chat.
Oh, okay, all right, I can't see that. Okay, Mildred, and then Matt, and then Nicole.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for this. I really appreciate this. I learned a lot. I have a quick question. It's just this slide right here that's up right now. Is this based off of the surveys in the
No,
order that things are? No, ma'am.
No,
Okay.
ma'am. No, we're gonna share that in a little bit.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure. Matt, and then Nicole.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Jill's comment because I'm just a little bit confused. This year it was all one contract because that's what we contracted for. The contract represents the need that the district addresses, not the other way around. And so I'm still confused by why the RT Fisher, which runs PD and does a lot of stuff throughout the year, in terms of this discussion, is put together with Step Up Academy, I think is the new name, where that is a discrete program that has a cost to it that we've been able to identify in the past. If the district and this group and the board all decided they didn't want to do the Step Up Academy, they could decide that when the contract gets negotiated over the summer with RT Fisher, it just wouldn't include that $150,000 expenditure. So I'm still confused why these are combined, essentially taking away our ability to weigh in on them separately when they are essentially separate programs that one company just happens to run. And College Bound, I think, still is separate because it is actually a separate company altogether.
Correct. Yeah, Matt. So definitely want to acknowledge and hear that. I was just giving the explanation for why we put them together. But if it is going to help move the work forward, I think we can vote on them separately. So at least we're getting the input from SBAC on whether one is being weighed over the other. But when we contract with RT Fisher, this is a component of their total contract. So I am hearing what you're saying is that we could potentially separate those two bodies of work. That's just not how the current contract is functioning.
Okay, Nicole? Where did Nicole go?
Sorry, here I am. Oh, sorry, I lowered my hand. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, that dovetails right into my question, which is a couple fold, but I'll ask it together, is clarity around the RT Fisher contract. So you say that those are combined as part of RT Fisher's combined contract. So as we go into the next school year, 24, 23, 24, is that, can we edit that contract, right? So if there's an issue with certain components of it, I'm assuming that we are able to, because we're voting on the budget here, that we're then able to edit the components of that contract going into the next school year. And then second is, sorry, I'm just a little bit confused still around the timeline for their total contract. I believe this is year 3 of 3, so that in the following year, for school year 24-25, it's an ongoing. But my understanding, this is year 3 of a 3-year contract, so there shouldn't be any ongoing cost for RT Fisher. If you could help me, or I mean, there might be an implementation of programs that they have recommended that are part of the framework, but that not necessarily RT Fisher. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take that last question first, Nicole. Hello? Take the last question. In terms of the timeline, you're correct that there was a 3-year rollout for that contract. So theoretically, this 23-24 school year would be the 3rd year of that contract, because their work is to, well, actually, hold on a second. I'm gonna have to go back and double check when that timeline started. I know we contracted with them this last year. Hold on a second. Sorry. I just want to make sure that I'm answering correctly, and I just have too many tabs open.
No worries. I don't think you're alone. I mean, you know, even at the board meeting, I was a little bit confused. So it's I know it's a lot of pieces. Thank you.
Yep. And I'm at this point of the school year where I'm like, I need to double check because I'm not remembering all of the things. Because I thought that they had on their slide. Yep. Okay, I'm not finding it, so I'm going to say how I remember it, but it is true that we were engaging their support as a contractor for a period of 3 years. I got to figure out when the start and the end date is, because their work is partially to help build the infrastructure, right, for us to be able to take on the work of the African American Success Framework. Part of that is the identification of our, early adopter schools. They've been engaging and supporting our schools with professional development and plans for our African American students to ensure that they get support. And it's true that they run the Step Up program, which is intended to be an affinity-based program to provide additional support and experiences for our African American students, both during the school year and during the summer. Thank you, Natasha. I see 2020. I think the years are getting confused. So the second part of that contract, can we edit any contract? Yes, I mean, as a district, we are entitled to negotiate with a contractor about their services. But part of the services that we have identified RT Fisher for has been to build the systems and support to continue operationalizing the African American Success Framework in the out years, in addition to the direct services that they provide through the Step Up program. And Natasha's is pulling up some specific details in the chat, I see.
Do we want to wait for that, or can we take Terry's question in the meantime?
Great, go for it.
Terry, and then Lindsay.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Regardless how we vote on this at SBAC, whether it's voted in one portion or two, how is it going to be presented to the board? Is it going to be presented as one contract for 300,000? Or if we vote on it in two separate pieces, will it be deaggregated?
Well, I think that, so SBAC's role is to provide recommendations to the superintendent, and then the superintendent is going to be able to be making that decision. I think that when we were moving back to combining them is because we were looking at that contract as one whole. But I think it would be, it would be good to get the feedback from SBAC just to get the pulse check on if there's a difference in how you would weight both of those parts.
And Lindsay?
Hi, thank you. So if I could just take a step back for 1 second, we are saying that the district is in a healthy enough position to put $3.2 to $3.4 million into additional investments into new or expanded programs and services. Is that baseline understanding correct? Is that correct? That this is like the list of the $3.2 to $3.4 million increase in our budget.
Yes.
And so we've had a list of things that we've seen and then have disappeared because other funding sources have been found for them. But I guess what I don't understand is how what is the big picture? Like, we say that it's a compliance matter or that it meets, maintains critical programs, but how does it actually drive forward our LCAP goals? So if we're trying to graduate, for example, career and college ready students, then we have a set of programs that help intervene at the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school level. And these sets of programs, some of them we're looking at here today, and some of them have gotten taken off of this list because of other funding sources, and other ones have disappeared and reappeared, like these wellness center fixtures on and off without any discussion or explanation into how they fit into the bigger picture of achieving our LCAP goals. It seems to me sometimes like we look at this all in piecemeal and we start to ask questions about the bigger pots of money, but we don't necessarily view the picture in a way that allows us to see what is moving the levers and what is not. If we only have $3.2 to $3.4 million to set aside for new improvements, this list shifts so often. I have a hard time pinning down like what it's actually meant to do. Does that make sense? Maybe it's not a question so much, but like.
So Lindsay, we do have other tiers. We're focusing on tier 1. And this is what the superintendent and staff have their recommendations for tier 1. There's also tier 2 and tier 3 that SBAC is welcome to vote on as well.
But if we say that it's tier 2, we basically move it out of the pot of 3.4 million, and therefore it does not get funded.
Right.
Unless you find an alternative funding source, which then we're not asked about because it's not from the general fund, and therefore it doesn't matter as part of the goals that go toward our, improving our district. I guess that's where I'm confused. Like, the tier 1 is getting funded, tier 2 and 3 is not.
But I think it's important for the board to know SBAC's thinking in terms of ranking some of the things that came up. So tier 1 is what we're focusing on and what we're asking SBAC to focus on. But we also have other items in tier 2 and tier 3. But the vote that we're voting on tier 1, but you're welcome to say, okay, we don't agree with this one, we want to put another item forward. So we're gonna be voting, asking the all voting members to comment on tier 1 as well as other items.
But some of these things are getting bypassed out of our SBAC system without discussion. So some of these things like the wellness centers, that's, you know, an idea that was put forth in the campaign season and now is magically funded without discussion by SBAC. Why?
I think that's a really good question. So
That's
I
a good
think that,
question.
yeah.
So where is it?
Yeah, I think it's that, so I hear what you're saying on this back and forth, and you know, I'm experiencing, this is my first time through. So these are all in my head, I'm like, these are all really good process improvements for trying to understand that, because you're right, we're looking at this budget right now in the parts that are related to general fund. And, you know, for folks who've been navigating other resources, as we get grants or some of our state and federal dollars have particular restrictions attached to them. So I think in the context of what we were trying to do here and in tier 1, we can line up any one of these items, to some of the LCAP goals, but that's not really how that process got situated. I do think that there was a reflection, and this is just me off the cuff being transparent, of when people submitted their budget asks and we were asked to take a look at them, we should have asked for alignment with the LCAP goals, right? Because those LCAP goals are strong. You know, goal 1 really is aligned to tier 1 instruction. So when we're looking, tier 2 is aligned, or goal 2 is aligned to our tier 2 and tier 3 supports. So when we're looking at some of these programs that we have identified in terms of making good on the promises for the initiatives and plans that we had already established, right, which is part of how we were identifying tier 1, those really can fall into one of those 2 LCAP goals. And one of the other improvements that we need to make is how those are better aligned to measures so that we can make stronger assessments about the impact that these things are having. So definitely want to acknowledge and hear that confusion.
And any response to why projects brought up during campaign season are magically getting funding not via this process and appearing and disappearing without discussion?
Well, I'll speak to what I know about the wellness ask. So the wellness supports is definitely a bigger initiative. I can't speak to what was or wasn't said during campaign season, but before Nikki and I got here, there was a commitment to expand that wellness focus for all sorts of good reasons for the Berkeley High community in particular. There was funding allocated to hire a vice principal over culture and climate who has started. I believe this year was her first year. And we are, the work that she has been doing is to build out that broader system of support, understanding the connections or disconnections with the health center. And this notion of creating a mental health center space at Berkeley High, as I understand it, is not a new one. And then so we've got the staffing had already been allocated for it. We've identified the space, and what we're trying to outfit is the furniture for students to be in that place. What we have since learned is that there are, those are one-time costs. So we've asked Juan to review his final budget to see if there are any resources that would be left unspent for this current year. So he has been doing that. And as part of the MHSSA grant in year 2, there is an allocation to help establish more wellness centers across the district. So that's part of the grant plan. So we've asked Rosina Karen, who's the lead there, to explore whether or not we can use some of those funds to help support that wellness center. So that's what's been happening with that particular item.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have Beatrice, then Matt.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to be returning to the RT Fisher, and I think I've made my comments on this. And the question has been how, when, and what will be the infrastructure to be built into BUSD to assume the work of integrating and building the systems to support the operating the African American Success Framework in the out years. Will that be in this year, 23, 24? Will an extension to the contract come to the board? And will the board know that this has been an ongoing question from SBAC? We agree that this is an important program to bring into the district. I do not think we want to find SBAC in this position in the spring to asking for the same questions and getting the same answers of this is a new contract, this is a renewal of the contract. So I think it's important to start building out that plan and that framework of how this is going to come into Berkeley Unified and how we're going to operate it ourselves. To be successful, we can't rely on other consultants to do the work. We have to integrate it and really embrace it.
Yes, Beatrice, I definitely agree with that. We did establish a new department this year. We have the Department of Equity, Achievement and Belonging. I will say that that department was also understaffed this year. So we are looking at shifting some things around in order to set that department up for more success, particularly with elevating the work both of the African American Success Framework and the Latinx resolution. So that's where we're building the internal capacity to help support and drive that work, because we don't want consultants over a long period of time, because that also is saying that we haven't owned the work of supporting our African American students and our Latinx students. And that's definitely something that I think, are embracing collectively as an organization. And it's the work that folks want to do to ensure that we can be closing the gaps for our students, but we've got to hold that work. You're right.
And so I think, looking at it in terms of what would it look like for BUSD to integrate this work, and where is the cost? Because the cost that we're seeing is a consultant's cost. And so what would it cost to do the work that they're doing internally ourselves with the department that you now have and the staffing that you will have? Will it be more? Will it be less? I think that's something to definitely have already start to develop and work with the consultant in terms of, and the district and, whoever's going to be in charge of this, to start really building out that budget, what it would look like, versus finding ourselves in the spring, looking at the budget and looking at RT Fisher again, and the board already approving a contract potentially.
Yep.
So I would just want to, we're very clear. I think everybody has been saying, how are we going to bring this back into the district where we all see it's important? Thank you.
Yep. And I will definitely, I'm taking notes, so I will definitely share them with the superintendent, because we have been talking about, needing to communicate this these high level concerns in particular, so that we can get their support for making those shifts too.
Sooner than later, I think.
Yep.
Thank you.
Matt.
Hi, I was just going to speak to Lindsay's comment just about the back and forth between funds, just having been on SBAC for a long time. Many years we're facing budget cuts, and that's what this group weighs in on. And the whole goal is to figure out what other resources exist to reduce the amount of budget cuts to programs that currently exist as possible. The inverse of that is when, we're looking at new spending, really trying to, just because something's tier 2 doesn't mean that many of us don't want it, and finding other stuff that was maybe on a tier 1 list, finding another restricted resource that could pay for it means that something in tier 2 can now potentially move up to tier 1, based on the superintendent's recommendation and all of us weighing in. So I just wanted to say that there's always been back and forth between the different funds. We're asked to weigh in on what the general fund is spending on. But I do think the goal of the district is to fund as many things as possible. And sometimes you can only fund through some of these restricted dollars. And what we have found actually is that the district thought something could be spent on restricted dollars, and it turns out it can't, which is, the RT Fisher contract, last year it was in discussion and we all talked a lot about it. And, the agreement, is that it was going to be funded through restricted resource. And then it turns out that when it was all said and done and the laws were made in June, that resource can no longer, wasn't available, didn't fit into it. So now we're talking about it in terms of a general fund expenditure. And so I think there's a different caliber of scrutiny when looking at general fund expenditures than restricted fund expenditures, just because the general fund is the only place that so many things can happen because they don't fit into other resources. So I just want to say the back and forth is very normal, and it makes sense because it allows for more spending to happen. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
So let's see. So this is just an overview of the budget scoring form. Again, we can do everything, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So we're going to be focusing on this, the actual surveys before. Matt, you have another question, or your hand's still up? No. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Jill to talk about some of the survey questions and themes that came up.
Yep. So definitely want to acknowledge and appreciate everybody for completing that survey. I think we had, what was it, Pauline?
14
responses. Yeah. So much better than round 1. So thank you for committing the time. We've talked a bit about what's listed here are some themes that came up, meaning, multiple folks were asking the same questions. So we wanted to be able to take a moment before we went into the voting exercise to share some information about them. So the RT Fisher was definitely up at the top. The other question that came through was the lower amount for RISE. And I believe the superintendent had shared that in the request that we had received from RISE, part of this was a response to the need and the good work that the RISE program does for our students, and a recognition that there seems to be a general consensus that this is important work to be able to support. And at least up to date, the contributions from BUSD were minimal to this effort. So the city of Berkeley was contributing somewhere around $225,000. We have been supporting the program with a $30,000 investment from the BSEP budget at Berkeley High. But as we're looking for other funders and grantors to help support the work, funders want to see that we believe that it's an important investment. And so we wanted to give folks an opportunity to weigh in on a reduced amount, but that would still demonstrate that BUSD is supportive of this program. There were some questions around the curriculum and instruction director and why not a TSA. And I think we've talked a little bit about this in the context of organizational clarity and this need for infrastructure. This call out for a curriculum and instruction director actually started before I got here. It came out in a monitoring report that we had from George Ellis because of our settlement agreement on the literacy action plan. One of the things that Aniki and I noticed coming into the district in the middle of the summer is that we do have a huge investment in TSAs across the district that do very important work. And I want to acknowledge that, you know, the TSAs are actually part of our infrastructure that could help us support many of the actions that we've articulated across a number of plans. But we don't really have a central organizing framework for those TSAs. They're reporting up to different places, and we haven't been as focused on the teaching and learning component as a collective whole across content areas. So we are expecting the curriculum and instruction director to help with that organization and to provide some through lines, and both vertically and horizontally, particularly the vertical alignment across PK-12. There's many central supports that are mostly focused on the PK-8, and then we have all of the supports on the high school, and we need to start building that alignment up through 12th grade. Why not another TSA? Also a good question, but one of the things that Nikki and I noticed coming in, as I was saying before, was that the TSAs work the teacher calendar. So there's some things that TSAs can't do that management positions allow for with regard to time and capacity. So it really is a support toward that organizational culture. One of the fourth item on that list is the math support for Berkeley High. So want to share with you that the superintendent and I met with the Berkeley High math team about 3 times this year. And we are, you know, they are really thoughtful about identifying some of the larger structural issues. And they had made a couple of requests. And one of the requests was around funding. You heard from public comment at the last meeting. Their request landed in both FTE alongside of materials and supplies. One gap that we have had in the Ed Services Department for over a year is that we have not had the centrally assigned TSA positions for math filled. We have one for elementary and we have one for secondary. So I'm happy to report that the secondary one has been filled. And again, we're going to be looking for more of that vertical alignment across those secondary grade spans. So we're talking 6 through 12. The other ask that they had was materials and supplies and some curriculum, and we've been working with Principal Regosa to identify funds in his budget to be able to support that. Sorry, Vicky, I see your hand.
My understanding from the asks was that it was also to have additional sections of support math class, like the 10th grade math 1 class, which would be, you know, FTE versus something that would be filled by a central office person.
Yes, that is true. So their ask in terms of the FTE were twofold. One was for coaching and support, and the other was to add additional sections. Mostly what they're looking at is for the subset of students who do not pass math in their 9th grade year. They're currently enrolled in the same class next year that is a combination of 9th graders and 10th graders. So we were looking to try to separate that out. And then we had asked them to prioritize their asks because we shared the same mantra with them. You can have anything, but you can't have everything. And they prioritized that coaching and support over that section, that math section class. So that's part of the reason why we were looking at that. I wasn't sure, sorry, I had to check with Nikki, the missing, it said missing costs and dollars. So as you saw from the slides that Pauline just shared, all things in tier 1 had those dollar amounts listed on there. So we weren't really clear what was missing there, but that came up a couple of times. So I don't know if it's because the dollar amounts were not in the survey, they were listed on the slides. And then the last thing, the last theme that came up was around the rationale and the investment in Puente and that expansion, and then the additional wellness center. So I think we talked a little bit about the wellness center. Puente, we have identified, again, not general funds, they're restricted one-time block funds to continue that work of Puente. We'll cover that in the AMIM grant. I do think it's important to note that Puente launched as part of our district's effort to support the Latinx resolution. We know that we have some severe gaps, particularly for our English language learners and our Latinx students that we wanted to be able to address. And that spring rollout last year probably wasn't as smooth as it needed to be. Part of that was dependent on this budget process. So putting those classes together and getting all of that up online really took some effort. So want to acknowledge Juan at the high school, and then Paco and Salida at Longfellow for picking up that work. But this was really the first year, and Puente is a program that is meant to be supported across the grade levels. So that's part of the reason why around that ongoing cost. I'm also happy to share that at least the numbers that I got from, most recent numbers that I got from Juan and Salida as they're building out the master schedules, is that it does look like those classes will be full at both the middle and the high school. So we'll be able to reduce that amount that we would need to contribute and not subsidize parts of that program for Berkeley High and Longfellow. So that's a good thing.
Okay, so on our next slide, if I could get us to move to the next slide. Oops. So we're going to look at the funding requests and proposals, and I'm going to take us through this pretty quickly because we still have to get to voting. So let's look. We had prior commitments, which was the first things that we had talked about. This is the 50% or more review results. So our bridge program, keeping it at tier 1 was a 92.9%. Destination college advisor 71. College bound was 57%. And then this is an interesting, this is a Fisher slide. Before merging, this is what the results were. And then after merging, you can see the results here. So Jill, did you want to say anything, or have we exhausted this? We've kind of talked about this. So it's interesting that 21.4 wants it at tier 1, 50%, tier 2, and the rest to tier 3. Pushing us on, new ask, any
sorry,
questions?
could you go back to those 2 slides? Sorry, there was 2 of them. I was still digesting them for a second. Okay. Okay. Great. And then could you go back to the next one really fast? I'm so sorry. Or else if you want to just link the presentation and I could do it on my own.
The presentation was shared. I think Vivian shared
Perfect.
it.
Okay.
So you guys can take a
Thank
look
you.
at that. Okay. So the new ask, the campus aides, these are all 50% or more. So we had alignment in terms of the districts, the superintendents and staff, and SBAC. So you can see the 0.5 counselor for Title IX, Longfellow, the 1.6, 78% curriculum and instruction director, that was 50-50, and school campus aide, 78.6. We had further alignment in these other areas, the Lexia, the equity, achievement, and belonging departments, operational funds, the occupational therapist, and the 2 safety officers at Berkeley High School, that was 92.9%. RISE, 50% of their original request got 100%. This is great. And then STEM, Super Science Saturday, that was 64% at tier 1. And then the additional academic counselor at BTEC, BTA, 78.6%. So this other slide talks about where we there was is that where we are in terms of where we had some differences. So for the administrative assistant, there was no alignment there between the superintendent and SBAC. It was 57% wanted it moved to tier 2, and cameras on the buses, 64% wanted it moved to tier 2. So let's just look at, we asked the question, if you had to make cuts to tier 1, what 3 to 5 things would you consider cutting first? Cameras on the buses, that was 78.6%. Then we had the administrative assistant, that was 64.3% said that we should cut that. Curriculum and instruction director, that was the third set, 50%. The STEM Super Science Saturday, 35.7%. And then the additional academic counselor, 28.6%. So lots of alignment with the superintendent and SBAC, which is great. A few things were a little different, but now I think we should focus on actually voting on each item. So what you guys, can you locate, you guys know where the reaction button is, right? So first of all, let's just make sure we have all the voting members. Vivian, do you want me to kind of like just call out who should be voting, or
Let
do
me
you have
share
an
this.
idea?
Let me share something on the screen really quick, and then I can go over it with them.
Okay, do I need to stop share or?
No. I don't think
Pauline,
so.
I'm just wondering if there's something that they could be looking at so that we can highlight and make sure that everybody's on the same page as we go through this.
I'm gonna share that after this.
Okay.
I'm gonna share the actual slide deck that we used, the actual worksheet that we used, and I'm gonna be scoring it in real time. So that's on the that's gonna be a new slide. So let me stop sharing.
No, that's okay, Pauline, because I can't find it, so I don't want to waste their time. So the only
okay.
challenges I see in regards to voting is the P&O. We're missing Sarah, so we have Vicky and Nicole. Who's the alternative?
So which one is the alternative in
Vicky
P&O?
or Nicole?
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
Vicky and Nicole are voting for the P&O.
So Terry, you're not voting.
Correct. Nikki and Nikki, Nicole and Vicky are
Okay.
voting for the P&O.
Alrighty. And is there anyone from DLAC? I don't see anyone from DLAC. Is that correct?
that is correct.
And Berkeley High School Development Group. I don't see anyone from that group either. Is that correct?
Jenny isn't here. Jenny Morgan isn't here.
No. And Ann Dixon is absent from GES-HAC. So that's another vote that's missing. So in total, we should have 15 votes. Because we're missing 1, 2, 3.
Miss Vivian,
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to say for BCCE, it would be myself, Shauna, and Yazid.
Okay, thank you, because Jocelyn's not here.
Jocelyn
Oh, ma'am.
isn't here. Okay.
So
Thank you so
Yazid,
much.
I'm wondering if it might be helpful if, so one thing we could do just to make the count easier is that for non-voting members, you can turn your camera off. And then Vivian, I think whoever's hosting can, there's a function for view that you only show people whose cameras are on. If that's helpful, that just might make it easier.
Let's see.
I'll take off my camera.
Yeah, hide non-video
Can you,
participants.
yeah, oh,
So
so
yeah,
can,
if you turn off your camera,
Matt needs to turn on his camera.
Shauna, can you turn on your, oh, she did. That's okay. Thank you, Shauna.
so if
And
you're not a voting member, turn off your camera.
so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15. That's right. Okay, so let me share what we're gonna be voting on. Hold on. Let me
Thank you, Jill.
hold on. Let me get back to where I need to be. So what I thought we would do, this, you guys can clearly see the line items that we're voting on, right? So I need to count for each one how many yeses and how many nos. So Vivian, did you want to call them out, or you don't want me to call them out, or Jill, whoever wants to call them out?
It doesn't matter. If you want me to, I will.
Yeah, can you call them out, Vivian? Because I'm going to be typing in the scores. Oh, well, who's going to count? Wait a minute. Jill, can you call them out? Vivian, can you count, and I'll write them down.
Okay.
Yes, Nicole?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Is that the same PAC who also here, or there other? Is that the same PAC as is also on SBAC? I just seen the columns.
That's Lindsay. You mean Lindsay? What do you?
Or I saw you had columns here for different components, so I wasn't sure if
Oh, no, let's
each one
just
of us
ignore
has
that.
different ones.
No, let's hide
okay.
this one. This one is going to be gone.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know if we each had different columns. Great. Thank you so much.
Just focusing on Q and R and all our priorities. So, all right, so everybody ready to vote? And Vivian ready to count? I can call them out and then just type them in.
Okay.
All right, so BSEP renewal. Well, all of these are compliant. So are we in agreement that up to row 11, they're all yeses? All 15 people are scoring, or you want us to count each one? All right, BSEP renewal costs, yes or no? Count, Viv? I can't see when everybody's finished scoring. So what do we have, Viv?
Team, the majority say yes.
How many? No, you have to count the yeses and the nos. So how many yeses?
Why do I have 20 count? Hold on. Everyone's 15. Everyone has a green check mark. There's no red X's.
But we don't have 15 people. So do we have only voting members? Do we have 15 voting? Is that what we have?
Yes.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
think you
15.
counted 15.
All right. So the medical therapy unit, could you is everybody's voted on that? 15 again?
Can I interject real quick? So,
Yeah.
the way that, just from the Zoom perspective, is whoever's the host is gonna have to like quickly clear. There's like a button that says like clear responses, and then we can all like vote again if we're gonna do these one at a time.
Oof.
So, I mean, it's fast, but that's like whoever's the host has to clear the response, and then we all have to click it again.
So Vivian, are you?
I'm looking for clear the response. I
It's
don't.
under participants, I think.
Okay.
I
looking
can't
under.
see it on my screen, but I think you'll see it on yours.
Okay. Yeah, it gives me the number too.
Yeah, it tells you the number, makes it really easy. It tells you the number of yeses, the number of no's, and then you can.
Oh, cool. We'd have to count.
But I still don't
Excellent.
see clear all, Matt.
Because this is going to take people have to
We
clear
did
their
this.
own.
Yeah,
Why
this happened last time.
why don't you go ahead, make me co-host just real quick, just so I can find it for you. If it's possible, because this is going to save a lot of time.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, so I'm co-host now. Okay, so if I click on more, there's like, it says on the participant screen, if you're host or co-host, it says invite, mute all, and more with a little down arrow.
Yeah, I don't have more.
And it
I
says
do not
clear
have
all
more.
feedback. is
Yeah,
the second option.
that's interesting. I don't have the more option. I have
Oh,
invite.
see, watch, I'm
all.
about to do it.
Okay,
Thanks.
Boom. Okay.
alrighty.
I can't be that person. So is anyone else co-host?
No, just you.
Okay.
You can make me co-host and I'll do it.
Great. Someone who's not voting should do this.
Sam can be
Thank you,
co-host.
Sam. Okay, great. So take me off.
So you don't want to be co-host anymore?
I don't
Ralph?
need to be co-host. I just needed to find the button for you.
Oh,
And
okay.
he needs to vote too.
I need to.
All right, so I'm going to push us on. Medical therapy unit. Sam, can you see, is everybody finished?
No, they're still voting.
Oh. All right, so Sam, can you see the yes and no votes? And you can just let me know, so Vivian doesn't have to count.
Yes,
Is everyone finished? We have 14 yes,
there we go, 15.
15
15
yes.
yeses
Okay,
are cleared.
cleared. Okay, Williams adoption. This should be pretty
There we
quick. You
go. You're
guys.
at 15. 15 yeses.
Thanks. Technology services, Xerox, increase in print shop costs.
There you go, 15 yeses.
Thanks. Classification study.
Fifteen yeses.
Contact tracer COVID. Oops, that's dollars each.
I've only got 13. I went from 14 to 13.
Oh,
Now we're
Yeah.
going down to 12. There we go, back at 14. Anybody
so-
not voted?
Or is somebody voting no? Any X's?
Regina's not voted
Regina.
yet.
Regina.
All right, you're at 15.
Thank you. PPE cost.
We're stuck at 12. 13.
All right, guys, pay attention. Who isn't voting?
We're at 14.
Jeez.
From what I understand, we can vote for yeses and nos at the same time because you've got that handy count now.
Yes,
So you're just asking for a vote. So even if you vote no, you can click your no button right now.
yes, the red X.
Thank you.
The red X, right?
Mildred?
All right, so what's this count for PPE?
Yes, ma'am. I thought I had it still up. You know, I'm going quick, I guess. Sorry.
All right,
There
now
we
we've
go.
got 15 yeses.
Thanks. COVID funds.
$15 yeses.
Great. Campus aid service assistance above enrollment projections.
We're at 14.
Is it somebody one negative or does somebody forgetting?
Oh, there
to
we
vote?
go. We're at 15 yeses.
Okay, good, thanks. Central office sped Lexia.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah,
Well, I'll
okay.
mooch you.
She wasn't saying that to you, Mildred.
Yes, I was. I'm kidding.
15 yeses.
Okay. So, Berkeley High School, .2 occupational therapist.
Regina, oh, there you go.
You can see
Mildred,
There we
everybody.
go. We
Oh,
got 13 yeses, 2 nos.
okay, this is the grant partnership with Berkeley Public Schools, Berkeley Schools Fund, Super Science Saturday and Summer Maker Camp.
Come on, people, vote.
Vote, 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 vote.
I got 3 more people who haven't voted. 2 more people who need to vote.
Lindsay,
You know, this is really hard because, you know, we watched this presentation and the reach and the amount of time and how it, you know, its goals. I just don't understand how it fits into all the other STEM steps and this and that. And I don't want to be wrong for the entire organization that I represent. So this is harder than you think, guys. So
I believe you.
Yes or no, Lindsay?
You can also not vote. Not everyone needs to vote on everything. I think that
Right.
you
Okay,
just,
so we have
you
10
just don't
yeses
vote
and
if
3 nos.
you don't have.
We have 10 yeses and how many no's?
3. And 2 abstentions, I guess.
I'm not gonna.
yeah,
use-
next
all right.
time I do this, I'll use the coffee icon, okay? I'll
Okay.
send it on the way.
Perfect.
Out to coffee.
All
That's what they
right,
do in P&O.
all right, curriculum and instruction director.
And if you're abstaining, please push the coffee mug so that we aren't waiting for you. All right, we're at 11 yeses, 4 nos.
Okay. The bridge program.
$15 yeses.
Yay. Oh crap. All right.
It's okay. Don't worry about the formatting.
Okay. All right. I'm having a heart attack. Destination college advisor.
I'm still missing 2 people. I don't have any coffee cups.
I think
There we
if you
go.
don't
14
vote within
yeses, 1
30
no.
seconds, it's just an abstention.
All right, 14 yeses, 1 no.
That was for the destination. Okay. College bound.
Going once. There we go. Closer. Missing 3 people. All right, we have 8 yeses, 2 nos, and 2 abstentions plus 3 nos. Sorry. 8 yeses, 3 nos, and 2 abstentions. We still have,
I'm abstaining. I can't find the coffee cup.
okay. 3 abstentions. 4 nos.
It's
All right.
right after the blue
How many
fast
no's?
forward map.
How many
8
no's?
yeses, 8 yeses, 4 nos. That's all you need.
Okay.
That would be 17
Okay.
votes for 15 people.
8 and 4. All right. Let's not bother the abstentions. Okay. So what's this? RT Fisher. And this is for the success framework.
You
Parent
have to
advisor.
Yep, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Steve, you're not voting?
Pauline, sorry to interrupt. I don't know if there's something going on with my Chromebook. I can't see the screen anymore. Is the RT Fisher one line item on this vote?
It's
Or
on,
is there,
it's
are
on
there two?
three different line items. It's
There are three different
150
ones. One
and
we
then
just,
150 for the step up and then 50 for throwing up.
all right, thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
All right, so you have 11 yeses and 2 nos. 3 nos.
All right, Step Up Academy, RT Fisher.
Seven yeses, 8 nos.
True up costs, I guess that will be more of the implementation cost and the success framework. That's just truing up the correct amount. So I would imagine. Have we finished voting?
There we go. I've got 9 yeses and 4 nos.
Literacy action plan monitoring.
Just to be clear, this is a compliance issue, this one?
Yeah,
Okay, just want to make sure.
it should.
And it's good for
And you got 15
and out-
yeses.
and aligned to the LCAP. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. So this is Title 9.4 Counselor.
Thirteen yeses, 2 no.
Okay, and then the operational funds, what is this?
For equity, achievement, and belonging.
Oh, the operational funds for okay, operational funds for what Sam said.
Equity, achievement, and belonging department.
We used formerly known as OFI plus extras, right?
Yes. OFI, CSAs are equity in general. Twelve yeses, 1 no.
Berkeley Technology Academy, an additional 1.0 counselor.
$11 yeses, 3 nos.
Berkeley High School, 2 safety officers.
$15 yeses.
This is for staff overtime materials for, what is this? Oh, equity in achievement and belonging. That's for staff overtime materials for that program, $20,000.
Is
I've
this a
got
new ask?
10 yeses. No, it was
No,
on
it
the
was
list.
all, it was at the top of the list. It was one of the first things we brought over. Let me double check that.
It was a prior year consideration.
The prior year consideration that came over, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
It's,
So we-
it's, for- so it was for things like, I got all sorts of people giving me coffee cups right now. It was, we had 10 yeses for that. So we're not voting on something else right now. I'm gonna clear the feedback.
oh wait, but I see Steve had a no. Steve had
That's
a
for
no
the-
for the,
That's for the next one.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, you're,
So the next
okay,
one
sorry,
is the-
cameras on the buses.
Sorry, my dogs really want to participate in this meeting.
Wow, lots of red X's.
Last chance to vote. All right, I've got only 1 yes and 9 no's.
Okay, the partnership with Rice at the reduced rate.
Can we vote on it at the reduced rate and then vote again at the full rate? Just, I know that at the end, the superintendent will make her recommendations, but just so we can have that
Yeah,
information.
I agree with you, Matt. Yes.
so we have
Oh, we're
14,
Okay,
we have 14 yeses on the half.
how are we gonna do the other one?
I would recommend just using the next two columns temporarily. And then vote, and maybe fill those in with a color and then do a second vote for the whole. But for some reason, right now, it's the next two lines. You're on row 29 for transportation. So
Oh, yeah.
it highlights, yeah, those, and then take a second vote.
All right, so if you're voting now, you're voting for the full original proposal, which is double what's listed on the screen. Any more
Finished?
votes? All right, I've got 9 yeses, 1 no.
Okay, and then the administrative assistant for equity, achievement and belonging department.
All right, I got 7 yeses, 5 no's.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of tier 1. I believe Lindsay had asked about some other things that we had scored, but I'm not sure. Jill?
Yes.
Yes. Let's see. We have other things that we had talked about it, but I think we're just focusing on what we had scored in tier 1, right?
We were, but you had shared that we would look at the things in tier 2 and tier 3. So I don't know where that is on this spreadsheet.
So it's right below here. So we had talked about the personnel commission. We scored it in tier 3. SBAC, can you vote
Pauline?
yes or yes?
You have two hands that were raised,
Oh,
Mildred and Vicky.
and Vicky. What are your questions?
So mine is, I'm concerned with the fact that we're scoring this, but I saw where the Personnel Commission have already posted for this position. So I'm confused as to why, we're voting on something, we're discussing it, but it's already been posted.
Okay, I can't answer that. We're voting on it here. And it hasn't gone through the budget priorities, so I don't know why that is.
So, and that's my concern, Ms. Pauline, with all due respect. It's just concerning that, we're voting on this and we're discussing it as a committee, but then it's being posted, for someone to transfer, for vacancy and transfer for an administrative assistant 3. So if we're voting on it, I would at least like for it to get pulled until we go through the process.
It's two different processes, though. The Merit Commission authorizes the position, but the district has to authorize the budget, right?
Correct.
I understand the process, but still, we're voting on something that has already been posted. So that's my concern.
Yeah, we don't have the authority. The Personnel Commission is the only ones who have the authority to post positions for classified or unpost them.
Mm-hmm.
So we should probably have that conversation with the Personnel Commission.
Okay, thank you.
So do we want to vote on this, the personnel commission?
I have a general question.
Oh.
Sorry about the process.
Sure.
So you have these listed like tier 3, tier 2. When we did our survey, there were some of these items that we thought should be tier 1. So if we're voting yes or no, that's not saying like, that's only telling you if it should stay in that tier or not. But for example, like the Title IX coordinator, if I vote no, you might think I want it to be tier 3, but I want it to be tier 1, for example. So I just want to clarify how we're going to do this voting.
So, if we have it currently scored as a tier 3 or a tier 2, so if you want to change the tier, you can, well, that's going to be confusing.
I think the only way to really do this is in this setting, is to, if a yes vote would mean I want it to be tier 1, regardless of where it is. Again, this is all information for the superintendent anyways, but I don't think we have the capacity to debate between 3 tiers for each of these items. Just like when we went to the first tier, I actually have opinions about, think some of these should be tier 2 and not tier 1, but I didn't have that opportunity, right? So I think it's really just, should this item be in tier 1 or not? That's just my opinion.
Well,
that makes sense. Or
That
should it be
works for
funded
me.
or not? Funded or not? If we had more money, would we pay for this or not? So can we, yes, Steve?
Yeah, I was going to say a yes vote means we want it funded, right? Regardless of tier. And I guess I'm still a little unclear. Tier 1, that I thought it's possible that things in tier 2 get funded, right?
It's possible, yeah.
What? Yes.
Vicky, you're not muted. There you go.
Sorry.
All right, so can we get a vote on the
So So I'm
Oh.
sorry. So we're voting for whether it should be funded or not. I don't think that's
Yes.
clear enough
Oh,
because we want to
yes.
fund everything. So I personally think if we want it to be funded for tier 1, because just funded or not, it doesn't put any priority. So I feel like some of these things should be a higher priority, especially because we have no votes in tier 1. So there's more room to put more things into tier 1. But that's just my opinion. But I just want clarity on what exactly our vote means.
The other thing too is that, that we're working off the May revise, the June budget won't be done till
Right.
30th. There's so many variables that
Right.
occur. So again, I think that the best thing to do is to say, like, by saying that we want this to be tier 1 and saying we want this to be in the high priority list. And then the numbers will speak for themselves, right? And then if there was more money, you can look at the things that have the highest votes of the tier 2 and tier 3 items. That would tell you something. I think, again, that's the best we can do in this sort of way of operating.
Agreed. So can we get a vote, a yes vote funded, no vote not funded, personnel commission, additional staffing and operating expenses?
no. Absolutely not.
I'm shocked. Mildred said no on that one.
Now, can we get a count?
I'm waiting for more people to vote. All right, I have 1 yes, 11 no's.
Oh, my.
Steve,
Okay.
that to irritate me, but that's okay, Steve. I'll be to your office.
Stop it.
Don't hate
The,
don't hate the player, hate the game.
Oh, my
Stop it.
goodness.
All right,
All
you
right,
two
so
behave.
the transportation, this is a new bus in 24-25. It's not in 23-24. Can we get a vote on that?
Is
Yep.
this an electric
All
bus?
No,
Electric buses are more expensive than this.
they're more expensive and they're problematic. So we're gonna be doing, it's not diesel, but it's, what is it? It's an
Natural gas?
acceptable, natural gas.
It's probably
I
a
think.
cleaner
Cleaner,
diesel.
it's a
but-
cleaner diesel, yeah. Our electric buses, we have 8 already and they're somewhat interesting.
But how are we voting on 24-25? I thought we're voting on, everything we're voting on here is 23-24, isn't it?
Right. So if you want to not vote on this, this is fine, but this is something that was put in the budget for 24-25.
Any more votes? Last call.
All abstain.
I'm sorry, hold on.
All right, I got 3 yeses and 6 nos and 5 abstains.
3, 6, oh crap, this thing again. All right, and then there was a request for a TSA in Title IX. There were 2 requests. We funded one in tier 1 and this one is now in tier 2.
So Jasmina's here and we've had questions just because there's been no clarity. Jasmina, I don't know if it's okay with the group and the people facilitating this meeting. Can you just speak to the difference between the 2 positions?
Yes, of course. Thank you for giving me that time. So the second position, the one that you're voting on right now, the TSA position, would be our consent education. And so currently we provide consent education through Sex Ed, and at Berkeley High, every year we hire consultants that come in and teach our children consent ed. This year, it was very complicated to secure these consultants because, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of consent ed consultants. And we thought that it would be really great to have one of our teachers be on a special assignment to conduct consent education for Berkeley High and also own the consent piece with the elementary and middle schools. For example, not to go and teach, but to say these are the different curriculums that we're using in elementary and what we're using in middle schools. But at the Berkeley High and BTA level, to actually conduct the consent ed education. That's like the simplest terms for the TSA. And then the counselor is an actual counselor role that provides mental health counseling to our students that have committed and experienced sexual harm. let me know if you have questions.
Thank you for that, Yasmin. I appreciate it. It gives me more clarity. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
All right, people have started voting. Any final votes? 15 yeses.
Okay, so I think that is, I'm going to stop sharing right now. So that brings us to the end of our voting. Matt, do you have a question?
Sorry, I know that Jill spoke to this earlier and I got a little bit lost in the answer. I've been asking every time, how come we are not considering the Berkeley High math ask? And I'm just hoping, Jill, you can explain maybe very specifically why that isn't on this list. And, or if we can, you know, vote on it. They've come to public comment. There's been a lot of work there and I'm just, you know, I know it may not be tier 1, but I'm just wondering why it isn't, you know, on the list.
So it wasn't on the list. I will say originally it wasn't on the original list because we did not get their completed ask with the dollar amounts associated with when we were going through the first round. So that's the specific on that question. There were 4 things on that list. 2 involved FTE. One was for coaching and support. The other FTE was for the math classes that Vicki had asked about earlier. And then there were 2 asks for materials and supplies and curriculum. So the reason why we didn't put it on this list again was because we have hired a math TSA, secondary TSA. So we're hoping to be able to provide some of that support in that context, at least moving into the 23-24 school year. And in talking with Principal Raygosa, he's identified funds to pay for the materials and curriculum supplies that they had articulated. So that leaves the one thing that we don't have on the list, which is the FTE for the additional sections to have the 10th graders repeat. So that was just we had told the math team too, you can have anything, but you can't have everything. And how would you prioritize that list? So we were taking them off of that priority list. I mean, we're taking those things in that priority, which is where we are right now. I still think that math section idea is a good one, but in the context of where we are trying to cover all of the things, that's where we landed.
Great. Okay, so I'm not necessarily advocating that we take a vote then. It seems like a couple of those needs did get met through other mechanisms. So I just wanted to be clear. Those are my members. I just need to report back. So I need to have a lot of answers. So thank you.
Okay, Vicki.
Yeah, so my first thing is response to the answer you just gave, Matt, and then my second one's a question. So I sit on the SSC at the high school. And that came to us, and then we were told eventually, like the group said, oh, we could maybe use carryover funds for this, but then we were told, because I'm also on BSEP, that you can't use the BSEP carryover funds for FTE. So there is no place now for the high school to actually fund for those additional sections. So, and this all happened after our last SSC meeting. So I would just like to potentially have this revisited because math is such an issue at the high school. So I just want to make that comment that the high school doesn't have a way to fund it because we can't use our BSEP carryover funds for an FTE. And then my next item is a question on the tier 2, tier 3, Wilson reading or Wilson was on there, and that was one of the items that we thought should be in tier 1, but you did not ask for a vote for that. You only did 3 of the tier 2 and tier 3 items. So I'm just wondering if we're not going to go through any of the other stuff. The Wilson reading system.
Can I just ask a quick question regarding the Wilson reading system? Does anyone have just a little bit more information about that? I'm very familiar with Lexia, but I'm not as familiar with Wilson. If someone can give me some information about that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Right. So I'll answer Mildred's question, and then I need to see that line item. Because Wilson is one of the reading supports that we use for students who need additional support in reading. And so we have been working, we've had some LCAP funds and some other funds to help pay for the training and then the materials and supplies that are needed to provide students that additional support. One of the things that we are moving toward with our literacy action plan work is a clear MTSS framework that more clearly defines how students move from tier 1 into tier 2 or tier 3 supports. And then we need to make sure that the teachers who are helping deliver those supports have the training and materials that they need to be able to do that, because it is considered an intervention.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And then, Vicki, I'm trying to find the line on Pauline's slides, but I'm not putting my finger on it. Hold on.
We have two people with their hand raised, Pauline, Beatrice and Matt. Maybe they can speak while Jill finds that item.
Yeah, I think Pauline, I still don't know if I'm in the same spreadsheet. So I think we had coded this. We had coded this as tier 3 partially, I think, because we do have some funds already allocated for this, but I think we were looking at expanding the coverage. So I don't know.
It's covered for next year. It's already prepaid for this next school year.
That's
It
what
would be a
was.
24-25 expense. So we don't need additional funding for this next year to continue using Wilson. It's on line 92 for
thank you,
Jill or Pauline.
Thanks. Yep, I see that. Now you say line 92. I found it.
I just want to give a time check. We're like 10 minutes out from 6.
I see Beatrice's hand is up.
Yep. Yeah, can I talk? It's okay.
It's all you. You got the floor.
Okay, great. I having been on the board, I think it also helps to hear not just the yes votes and no votes, but also the things that didn't get discussed or didn't get into tier 1 funding, like the math, like the ELD for our ELL students, to be noted to the board that these were items that were presented, considered, and discussed, but didn't come back into the yes votes. So I think they need to know both the yes and the no's, but also the things that didn't fall into the buckets that we discussed and voted upon, and for them to also be able to consider, not leave it out of the discussion, but really present it as these were things that were considered and we heard and we wish there was additional funding for. So I think that that voice needs to also be heard.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And Nika and I were talking about that very thing earlier today, because, you know, again, we had to have some level of prioritization and filtering, but there needs to be a communication loop back and hearing the addition of, we want to see all of the things before the narrow, just so that folks know that their requests were reviewed. But yes.
Yeah, for instance, there was nobody from DLAC to represent and also speak forward to what are the things that we're hearing from our TSA, our teachers who are teaching our ELD students and long-term English language learners. I mean, that was unfortunate, but it would have helped also to have had that kind of presentation in terms of the needs of students.
And we can do a better job connecting the dots because we were able to account for the DLAC recommendations in the context of the LCAP. Most significantly, one of the things that was on the list was additional capacity for our ELD TSAs, which will be able to cover through the LCAP. So that was, I think, that one of the biggest items.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so thanks for everybody's participation. We have just a few slides before we will let you guys go.
I have one more quick question, just for clarity. I apologize. You guys in the beginning of the presentation mentioned Puente and a new dollar amount, but we never voted on that. Is that being funded by something different, or is it coming out of this money?
We're going to be using the AMIM grant to cover.
Okay, to
that.
cover
Yeah.
the costs that's left.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you said the AMIM only covered a portion of it. Okay.
Yes, it's going to cover the bigger portion of it. There are some BSEP dollars that I believe it is $40,000 of BSEP that is helping to pay for the contract that we maintain with the Puente organization, and then materials, supplies, and field trips for students.
Okay, so we will be sharing your feedback with the board. We have a meeting on the 7th and the 14th. We'll also obviously continue to monitor costs and adjust the budget and adjust priorities. So Matt, thanks for that explanation. It's not a very straightforward process. It's a lot of give and take and reevaluating and moving things around. Our arts and music block grant, we know that it was revised by the May revise. So at this point, we're just taking expenses for 23-24. And of course, the governor's budget, again, Matt shared this, that's going to be in June. So if there are significant changes to the governor's budget, we will be required to do a 45-day revision. And of course, if there's a reduction in funding, we have our scale in terms of what we're funding and the running total for what we're funding. There was clarity in the May revise on Proposition 28, and we're unpacking that information as we speak. So our superintendent is inviting everyone to join us for the year-end review. That's tomorrow in the boardroom. And it will be assisting with our organizational clarity, progress monitoring, community engagement and partnership, and continuous improvement efforts. So Jill, did you want to add anything?
Please come.
Everybody, please come.
It does. There is a slight conflict with the Latinx graduation ceremony, and I wish I could be in two places. So if anybody's going to that, please send us pictures.
Okay, guys. Well, with that, that's the end of SBAC for another year. We're going to be starting the process a lot earlier next year. We have a roadmap that we kind of didn't have when we started this process this year. So now we'll be building on current year assumptions and actually taking an opportunity to look at all our investments in more detail and look at the funding sources as well. So I think this is the start of a process, and we are happy to continue the process next year. So thanks again, everyone. And I think we, let's see, wait a minute. What did
Beatrice? Yes, we will do that.
Beatrice? Oh,
We're planning, we've got that planned too. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate your feedback and your participation. So thank you very much, and bye.
Night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your work on all this, and I hope you guys get a bit of a break this summer too.
Break?
Just a little one.
You're hilarious, Nicole.
Oh, I'm going out of the country, Nicole, just so I can get a break. I'll let you know.
Oops, my cell phone fell in the river.
You know, that Matthew, how many things we had below the line? Nicole, you like to be the last one off, right?
I know. What is this? I can't get enough. Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Bye.